Well, good morning, everybody. Ross on the West End Network. Hope you're safe and well. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. And a glorious Tuesday it is in central London. Yeah, should have a nice couple of days in the UK, which is nice for a change. But anyway, you don't want to know about the weather. You want to know what the subject is in today's morning musings. So when I to the channel, what we tend to do, usually like when I'm in the office, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but it's become more of a daily thing now, is sort of a thought piece in the morning, and then that springs loads of comments and um, back and forth with people watching the videos and stuff, and it's a great, and I really enjoy it because it gets the old brain matter working a little bit earlier than usually it would do. Um, but today's subject is maybe a slightly controversial one, possibly. Um, it stems from a conversation I had, and I hate name dropping, but conversation I had with Steve Lomas, and hopefully we'll get Steve on the channel soon. Actually, we're just trying to organise days for him, so he'll be doing Hammers 11 in the next week, 2 weeks, or something like that. Depends who we can get on. And it was at one of Len Herbert's events, Vaudeville Promotions, and it was a very, very good event actually. And it's where we spoke to Bobby as well, so that was yesterday's musing. And I was listening to who he was talking about some of the players he was up against, he played against, and the likes of Vieira, Petit, John Terry, Gerrard, and I mean he was just reading off names, and I was thinking, is the Premier League boring now? Are we in an age where every those individual names, those Vieiras, those Petits, those Moncurs, those Bishops, these types of players, it's almost like we're wouldn't necessarily say more individualistic there back in the day, but those names stood out. Every team had one or two players who you think, oh, I'd like you in Arsenal, or he's a bit of a bastard player. There was always something about it. But nowadays, you get teams coming to London Stadium and us going away to the grounds and stuff, and it's more of a collective rather than an individual. And even for the individual side, I mean, Liverpool's running away with the Premier League this year, but how would they sort of come up against an Arsenal Invincible team, for example? I think they'd have them for lunch. I think the Arsenal side would have them for lunch. Yes, they've got match winners like Salah, but I just thought whether the Premier League has now been so sanitized and so almost the individualistic footballer has been coached out of the game, and the ones that are still around, the likes of Jack Grealish and stuff, are vilified for going to have a pint, in a working man's club. And I just feel a bit sorry for, I remember I used to get my Merlin sticker book and used to, oh yeah, I got Steven Gerrard, I got Shiny, or got da. Nowadays it's hard, I'd probably open them and I'd probably, hello, who's this? Oh, he plays for Chelsea, doesn't he? He plays for Fulham. You don't get those sort of personalities in the game now, and yeah, that side is sadly missed. I think sadly missed, and yet it might be a factor. It probably is a factor of there's so much money in the game that you not necessarily stand out, but it's about getting as much TV revenue and as much commercial revenue, so you can't be seen to rock the boat. And obviously, we hear stories, of Christmas parties and stuff like that, and you can't do that nowadays. Social media gets all blasted on the newspaper. I mean, look, the whole thing with Jack Grealish and going to a working man's club, although he did put a couple of grand behind the bar, if I remember reading the story correctly. And I just feel slightly sorry for, you know, for the youth really, because they haven't got those. Yes, you have your sort of individual idols, but literally every club had two or three players you would really fancy in your side, or two or three players at least that you would know of. I watched some of the England game yesterday, and I was thinking, just bored me. Apart from obviously Bowen playing, but just bored me. And I think we're getting to it's almost we're getting to a stage where it's so technical that the whole personality of football, the fact is, football is entertainment. It's a game. But it's probably the same true actually. You have of looking at other sports, snooker, Bronny O'Sullivan. You haven't really got those sort of. There was about half a dozen characters. Darts as well. There was like loads of characters. I watched a great documentary on Sky about Dart Kings and talked about Bristow and Jockey Wilson and Bobby George and people like that. And maybe it's just when money gets put into a sport, it's sort of that the personality, and initially the personalities are what drive the interest into the sport, and then it becomes more like the professionalism takes over. And I just think I'm just pretty bored of the Premier League. I just am, really. Yes, it's nice that we haven't got Man City necessarily winning the league this year. Someone else is winning it, but that team was so dominant, that fair play to them. And I was just listening to Lomi talking about, some of these players, and it's like, we'll never get to that. We'll never get to that stage again. That's a bygone era now. And you got to think that was probably the mid sort of 2010s max. Over the last sort of 15 years, there's good players, there's amazing technical players, but I wouldn't say there's any personalities. I don't think Kevin De Bruyne is a very good personality. I find him a horrible person, actually, from my personal interaction with him. And I just wanted to open up to the floor, open up to you guys. Is the Premier? Am I being just an old fart? Am I being? Am I just being someone who's just a bit moaning for moaning's sake? But I was thinking about it the other day. That the Premier League just bores me a little. I mean, this season's a bit of a weird season as well, in the fact that there's the bottom three are so poor. The bottom three statistically could be the worst bottom three we've ever had in the Premier League collectively in terms of the points they've won. Liverpool sort of run away with it. Pretty much everything's with 10 games to go. Maybe a few European places and maybe a bit of brinkmanship in terms of one-upmanship in terms of whether we finish above Spurs or not. But the season's over. That might be why I'm bored of it. Maybe because there's nothing for us to play for. But I just think in general, I'm just bored of the Premier League. I'm bored of the sanitized nature of it. I want personalities. I want to be able to boo a player. I want to be able to boo a Robbie Savage. I want to be able to have our bastard. I want to have our Arnautovic, our player who everybody hates, but he's our player. We just don't. We just doesn't seem to have that sort of personality anymore, the Premier League. And maybe because it's one of the most, well, it is the highest profitable league in the world, that actually maybe that's been sanitized out to encourage more sponsors and stuff. And again, it just shows what we said a few weeks ago. We spoke about football being a business, and even more so maybe now. I don't know. Anyway, musing over, but I want your comments below. I want to find out what you think. Are you an old bastard like me and hate not hate the Premier League, but find the Premier League really boring? I think also just the breaks of international breaks and things like that make things even more boring as well. We play Wolves on April Fool's Day, and it's like, oh, but maybe it's because the season is sort of over, really, and has been for the last sort of half a dozen games, I think, to be honest. But let me know in the comments below, please. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll be later on with any news and that's happening. There's plenty of West Ham news as per usual. There always is. Much love. See you soon. Bye bye.